Hey everyone, and welcome to this episode of Grow Wealthy Grooming. I'm River Lee, the founder of the Savvy Groomer, where I teach you guys to go from being burnt out, broken, to healthy, wealthy, and happy. Let me introduce you guys to our guest speaker.
Hey everybody, my name's Jim Atchison. Just a little background on me. I met River when she hired me to help the grooming community. I thought I knew about the grooming since I had a doodle. Don't hate me. But boy, was I wrong. I didn't realize how interesting and different your industry really is. So I'm a partner at a national law firm, and my passion has always been helping business owners navigate the business and legal issues that are just part of owning a business. There are some that are common among all types of businesses, all types of industries, but there are many that are, I've learned, really unique to the grooming industry. I have clients who are river cross solopreneurs, which I think is a great term. And I also have clients who are multi-million-dollar companies with thousands of employees. I really enjoyed doing our last show, and I'm really excited to be back. I love solving the mysteries of, the bullshit of law, for lack of a better term. And I say that as a lawyer. And I have so much fun just hanging out with the grooming community.
Oh, we really appreciate it. Jim was kind enough to come and speak to my membership masterclass about our contracts. We actually spent 3 hours discussing contracts and we had a great time. So, I'm just so excited to have you back. And I know that we had a few people after our last show who wanted to know more information about hiring and pay. And while I know that this is one of your specialties, and I know a lot about this topic, but what I don't know is the legal side. And again, I've never had a student or even a client with thousands of employees. Not that I would want that. That seems a little crazy, but you've got all that stuff on lockdown. So bless, right?
Right. And it's actually funny you say that because I can't tell you how many business owners I think I talk to, who are like, hey, now they've got a business with, 100 employees or something like that. And they say, with the way the expenses go up and everything else, like I made more money when I was doing this on my own. So, yeah, and I know that's something that River's passionate about. And I'm happy to help with that. This stuff can be very complicated, and it is complicated. And unfortunately, there's a lot of, what I'll call, misinformation, though not intentional, out there on the internet, especially when an issue like this has a lot of state-specific complications. It may be the law in Rhode Island, may be different in someplace like Texas, especially kind of the New England states versus the southern states. And I know your strength as a business coach is telling them the idea of what to do, and I'm the one who can help them actually execute and make it a reality, or guide them in the right direction.
No, and I think that's amazing because a lot of times I don't have those other information. I don't even know where to begin with that. And I do think in the industry, especially in our Facebook groups, and I know he was very gracious. I was scrolling through Facebook groups and I'm like, we need your help. Mm-hmm. He's like, this is terrible advice. I'm like, I know, but we don't know any better. So, thank you so much for being here today. So anyway, let's get on to today's topic. Hourly rates versus commission. What is fair for dog groomers? And listen, cat groomers, I hear you too, as well as cat groomers, right? So, oh, come on, kitty, let's go. So business owners, I know he's like, excuse me, cat groomers, represent. So anyway, business owners always ask me how they can convince the groomers to accept hourly when they've been used to receiving commission. And groomers always think they deserve 50% commission. So who's right? Okay. So last time we actually discussed, what percentage is fair. And we found that those percentages had to be fairly low, and that created a lot of complication. So today we're going to discuss what a fair wage is for groomers and how to propose to owners and groomers so that way we can bridge the gap on fair pay. Now, the dog grooming industry has not raised our prices in decades, right? And we've been struggling to keep up with inflation. And let's be honest, with minimum wage and with the looming $15 an hour minimum wage, housing prices going out of control, there's a constant struggle between business owners and needing to increase their prices, but also being afraid to lose business, and groomers saying, hey, even though you may or may not be losing money, we need that 50% commission, which we guys know is a gross profit. So this is leading to constant tension and fighting, owners thinking employees are being greedy for asking too much, and employees thinking that owners are greedy for keeping all of that money to themselves. And it can be really tough to decide exactly what is fair, guys. But for the sake of the industry, I really believe that owners and groomers need to bridge that gap and work together to settle on a new pay structure. A lot of the tension comes from misunderstandings on both sides, right? So on today's episode, I want to break down the situation. We're going to look at the numbers and provide some insights. And I'm really grateful to have you here, Jim, because a lot of the things that I'm going to say, I want to make sure are legal and correct.
Of course, yeah, we can look at the possible legal implications too.
No, I think that's a great point, and I really agree with that. And first things first, just as we talked about in the last show, we need to discuss, honestly, if you guys haven't heard it, why 50% is crazy. Okay. So groomers are in a position to negotiate high pay. We are aware of that, right? We know that there is a huge, 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 huge need for more pet groomers, and groomers need to make a livable wage, right? But here's the truth. It may sound cold, but businesses are open to make money. In order to stay open, businesses need to make money, whether or not the employees make money. I know that's a really painful, really unfortunate truth, right? But a lot of businesses are not necessarily protected by law like employees are. And most business owners have lost a lot of money during the shutdown. A lot of business owners did not qualify or did not know how to get a lot of the benefits that the bigger guys did. And a lot of shops, because of raised rents, inflation, they just simply can't afford 50% commission, and they really couldn't afford it before the pandemic, and they really can't afford it now. There is no industry that pays 50% commission as a gross profit. 50% is a partnership. Like if you and I both opened a grooming salon and you were paying half the bills and I was paying half the bills, that's when that 50-50 comes in, right? And even highly paid professions like lawyers and doctors have partners in the law firm, they don't get those 50% of their fees. And, in a second, Jim, I'd love for you to maybe explain a little bit how a partnership in a law firm works. That way they can understand the difference, because we think 50%. And again, a lot of us don't understand how rare that is in other industries. And then also I want to mention too, guys, that if you're a W-2 employee, the 50% is not just 50%.
No, that's exactly right. If you think about it, a groomer that makes a 50% commission on the revenue, not even the profit, is really a partner in your business that one is going to make more than 50% of the profits of the business because they're getting paid a commission based on the gross revenue that comes in the door. And two, they're making that without having any obligation to share in the expenses. If payroll is short 1 week, if you need some additional funds to pay rent or utilities during a little bit of a slow period, someone who's a partner, they have an obligation to kick in on that. You can do a call and say, hey, look, we own this business together. We need some additional short-term funding to cover some cash flow, and they have to kick that in, or else they potentially lose their partnership interest. If you have a groomer that's making 50% of the gross revenue, they're entitled to half that money that comes in without having to deduct for stuff like rent, utilities, and everything else, without that obligation to share any expenses. It's a deal that I would say is almost too good to be true in any profession, let alone in the grooming industry.
Absolutely. And again, I don't know anything about, really quickly about, honestly, about lawyer partnerships. Is there like a flat fee that partners get in law firms, or is it anywhere near 50%? Because they have to pay in to be a partner.
That's exactly right. What a lot of people don't, understand is that when you have an existing law firm and you're being elevated to a partner at that firm, there's a buy-in, because you're essentially purchasing an interest in that business. Again, something that a W-2 employee sharing in the profit doesn't, or the revenue, doesn't have to do. Typically in law firms, when you're at the partner level, that's where you share in a percentage of the profits of the business. And what that percentage is, it really comes down to how many members there are, how many partners there are, and then they can always discuss what the compensation looks like between them. There might be some that are working on a more limited capacity, so maybe they have a smaller percentage versus other ones that may have a larger percentage, and that's generally how it works.
Now,
And I should say too, one thing though, and I know you're going to get into this. One thing that the legal industry does though is oftentimes often attorneys that aren't at the partner level, the true partner level, commissions, in order to encourage them to bring in work and bring in business. But that's a way smaller percentage than 50%. I wish it was 50%.
I know. And just to share, because again, a lot of us have never worked in this industry. How expensive is a buy-in? Is it like 2,000, 5,000, 50,000? What would you say a normal buy-in is for a law firm?
Yeah, it depends on the size of the firm and what the revenues look like, but typically it could be 50,000 for a more of a smaller based law firm to it's hundreds of thousands of dollars at larger law firms.
Wow. And I think that's really important for us to hear, because when we start a business as a solopreneur, a lot of times we're investing 25, 50, or 100,000. Imagine buying into being a partner for, on the low end at 50,000. Now that $50,000 partner in a law firm, and I'm just going to take a wild guess because I genuinely, guys, don't know. Do they make like 20%? Do they make like 5%? Like, and again, I know everything differs, but can you give us just a vague ballpark? Because I think this is so important, because not only does this person have a very expensive degree, right? And I think sometimes we have to put it in perspective. Not that groomers don't deserve things, but I do think that we need to look at other industries to kind of get a ballpark of what reality is.
Yeah, so it's interesting because that's really, where the issue comes down to when you're paying groomers a 50% commission, how much the owners, the partners at the law firm, take in and divide up really depends on how much profit the firm makes. Ideally it'll come in and, you can be somewhere in the 20% range, in the legal industry, kind of the thinking is that for attorneys that are doing work, you want a third of the revenue that comes in is supposed to be the profit, after covering the overhead, the salaries and things like that. But, it's also the downside of being a partner is that, again, if it's a slow period of time, they might not make any distributions, or, during COVID, a lot of times partners had to come in and kick in some money to keep the doors open, to keep the lights on, and to keep everybody employed.
So I think that's really telling, guys. Someone had to pay 50 to hundreds of thousands of dollars to get 20%, probably realistically, of net profit. So after all the bills have been paid, and this is again, they're doing the work, they're doing the daily work. And, and I'm not saying groomers do not deserve it with our education, but we don't have this giant entry of, becoming a groomer, right? I think there's a lot of skill involved. I think there's a lot of work involved, but we didn't have to go. How many years to school is it to be an attorney?
Yeah, it was 4 years of college, getting a bachelor's degree, although it did take me 5, and 3 years of law school.
Yeah, so we're talking realistically 7 to 8 years, depending upon if you want to kind of Van Wilder a little bit. But
right.
That's important when we put our context, because I think that helps us, especially when we're talking to other professionals outside of our industry. And when Jim and I talk too, it's important because he's coming from one place of understanding when he and I are creating things for the business side for you guys and the legal side, when I'm talking about things, because, it's very hard for someone like an attorney or a CPA who's using the rules that are designed in the traditional business world, and they're coming into our world and they're not, in creating that profitability, right?
Right, exactly right.
So, and I'm really quickly going to illustrate why this 50% on the W-2 doesn't make any sense, again, from this business perspective. So let's look at our numbers, okay? I would say realistically, and Jim, you can tell me if I'm wrong, I would say like assuming 15 to 25% to taxes is pretty average. Some of you guys could be more, some could be less, you have write-offs, but just a blanket term, let's say, 15 to 25.
Yeah, that's a good ballpark.
Okay. So what I do is this is our 100%. If you guys are watching this, so we've got 100%. We're going to take our 50%. So we've got 50% left, right? So if we take, let's say 20, right, for our taxes, now we've got 30% left. Okay. So what happens if we take another 10 or 20% for overhead? Now we've got 10% left. We've got one little tiny pinky left. That is our debt, our sinking funds, upgrading anything, and our oh shit money if anything goes bad.
And making a profit for the owner.
Well, that's the thing too, is, you know, for better or for worse, a lot of groomers could take that $100,000 that they're opening their business with, just put it into when the stock market's better, right? And get a better rate of return. And I think that's what we have to remember too, as we're seeing a lot of businesses close, right? We need to see these owners make profits so that they'll continue to hire people. So you really should work for a business that runs legal W-2 employees. You know, in a perfect world, these business owners need to create enough profit that they can give you guys health insurance, a 401k. At the very minimum, they should have workers' comp. And I know this has nothing to do with you guys if you're employees, but they need to save for sinking funds and emergency funds.
Right. And your groomers should know the value of the benefits that you provide, you know, health insurance, 401k, workers' comp. That's something that takes time and money for an owner to provide. And that's really part of their overall compensation when you think about it. Certainly, you know, while a groomer may think of their compensation as what their net payroll is, you know, their paycheck is that, you know, makes it to their bank account. From the owner's perspective, the compensation that they're paying includes all of the employee benefits, you know, 401k, health insurance, workers' comp, you know, anything else that you may provide, you know, buying lunch maybe on Fridays and stuff like that. From the perspective of the owner, that's what the compensation is.
Right. And, you know, if you're an employee, you want a good boss who takes care of you to do all those things that, you know, and if they do that, they just can't give you half. And if you are a business owner and you're paying half, that's why you can't afford those things, right? You know, running a grooming business, you know, is doing more than just grooming itself, right? If you're a business owner, you are also managing the salon, you're making sure the important staff members are doing what they need to do and that they're paid well, you know, and I firmly believe, you guys know my feeling on grooming managers, they should not be groomers, right? Even if they're qualified to do so, because I always use the example of massage envy specifically, but any kind of spa, right? You have people doing facials, you have people doing massages, people answering the phones, checking in and out clients, and then you have the person managing them. The person who's managing may sometimes do the occasional massage, the occasional facial, the occasional answering the phone, but their job is to make sure everything is running really well, right?
That's exactly right. And having someone do that, you know, that's really a critical role, but it also allows the owner to focus on growing the business, you know, going out there into the community and spreading word, you know, providing of the services that you can provide, you know, going to things like maybe Chamber of Commerce meetings and community events. And if you don't have to deal with kind of the nitty gritty, you know, kind of the, you know, this groomer maybe is fighting with this groomer. I mean, every business has its own little drama and stuff like that, you know, coverage for someone who might be out sick. If you're managing, you know, those issues as they come in, you'll never make it out of the office in order to go out there and grow the business. And that's really the best way to do it. You know, a lot of shaking hands, you know, getting the name out there. That's how you're going to grow it. And having an effective manager, you know, is, even with the expense of that, in my experience, I think it's generally a net positive, you know, based on the work that you can bring in.
Yeah. And what I love is that, like, I really, my passion is, you know, I love you all, but my favorite is like my solopreneurs or my people that want to have like a very tight one shop or, you know, a smaller business. And what I love is every time I talk to you, Jim, we talk about these higher level things. Like if you want to have multiple shops, if you want to have this grooming empire, the way you're going to do that is to have those things unburdened from you. Right. And if you're an employee and you want to work for a company that has multiple locations, there are so many benefits to that, right? They have multiple locations, then you are always going to have plenty of work, right? Because if this place is slow, you go to the other one. Or if you want to move, you don't have to move companies, right? There a lot of the benefits that the corporate shops have, we could have more, so like locally owned shops like that if we learn how to do this, right? Because business owners really can't afford, guys, more than 50%. To stay profitable, business owners need to keep their payroll in a perfect world under 30% of their gross income, okay? And to keep an attractive business, they need to keep their grooming rate reasonable, right? And, I used to say realistically for our small dogs before COVID, I would say, a good price point is between $60 and $75. And since COVID, since a lot of these things, we really need to bring it up to $100 for a small dog. Okay. And I want to say that if you're working in a shop who's charging, let's say like 30, between 35 and 40 bucks a dog, let's say on the very low end. I see a lot of you guys saying my shop only charges $35, $40 a dog. So we're going to split in the middle and say 38, right? There's no way that person can pay other employees such as a bather or receptionist, right? If they're going to give you 30%, you're only making $11.40 an hour. That's not very much. And I also want to point out the fact that at $11.40 an hour, that's not even minimum wage in a lot of states. Okay.
You'd make more money working for someone else as a groomer.
Well, and this is what's crazy is you could go to Chick-fil-A and make more money, right? I mean, there's McDonald's right now that are offering $20 an hour. So that's very important for our business owners to hear, because if you're a business owner, you need to make sure that you're creating a livable wage below the 30%. This is where things have to be fair. Business owners can't say to groomers, oh, just suck it up, take low wages and be happy. And employees can't say, yeah, don't be profitable, go suck an egg. We've got to find this, okay? And I would say most groomers want to make at least 20, 30 bucks an hour. And I know a lot of you guys always talk about commission, but it's really important that we start looking at hourly or salary, like how much a year would you want to make, okay? So here's the truth. If the salon only charges 100 bucks per dog, has no other employees working on the dog, and the groomer grooms 8 dogs a day, and I'm going to assume that's 8 hours a day, so it's a dog an hour. So take that if that's how you groom. If you don't groom that way, make your numbers a little lower. Then you can earn about 30 bucks an hour as that employee, okay? And again, that's assuming you're grooming 1 dog an hour, which some of us can do, and some of us are a 5 dog a day person. So the preferred pay structure that I like to teach is to use a team, and I'll be very honest, guys, this is the system I had when I had my salon. We had 5 employees. We had everyone on hourly. We did hourly plus bonuses. Okay. So you might be asking yourself, why are hourly plus bonuses the best way to pay groomers? Well, hourly plus bonuses works to provide workers and employees a steady income. Hourly provides everyone in the business a steady income, right? So how does this specifically work? And I know I reemphasize that, but it's important, guys. It's important for you to have a steady income. And Jim, I'd love your insight on this really quickly. Without a steady income, it's hard to buy a house. Even if you're a W-2 employee, it's hard to buy a house. It's hard. And you guys know I'm not a big loan person, but if you need a loan, so if you want to eventually leave and open your own business, the best way to do that is have a track record of a steady income. Also, it's a lot easier if you're applying for a loan and saying, hey, as an employee, I made this much, right? When I apply for that loan, they're going to, oh, wow, she's making 30, 40 bucks an hour. She's going to make a lot more as a small business owner.
Exactly right. And there's a benefit too to the business owner because it lets you project the expenses a lot easier too. When you're able to kind of budget and plan for what your compensation that you're going to be paying at is, having that steady, expense in that case rather than income is really going to benefit, you in terms of planning for the future. And again, creating that fund and knowing how much your fund has to be in order to cover things like payroll and other expenses if you are in an emergency type situation.
Absolutely. So let's say we're going to have an employee make an hourly rate, let's say 20 bucks an hour. But let's say that groomer is going above and beyond, they're faster, they groom more pets, let's say they groom 20% more for a nice, easy round number. Okay. Well, then they would get a bonus at the end of the month. And that bonus modifies your hourly rate to work out to closer, let's say $24 an hour. The owner needs something to prove that you're going to work hard, and the employee needs something to guarantee that their hard work is valued. The bonus is what does that. Okay. And with the hourly plus bonus model, I can also say to the employees, this is your hourly. If you finish early, then go home early, guys. And I'll still pay you for the number of hours you're going to work. And if you'd like to groom more dogs, you want to stay the full 8 hours, then you'll earn a bonus at the end of the month, right? I feel like this is just the best of both worlds.
It really is. And in my experience, a lot of employees like to be incentivized because it really lets them control what they make, right? It kind of puts it in a position where, yeah, I can get a raise effectively, or I can get some additional compensation just by working harder, and being more effective in what you do, and sometimes working, staying motivated to maybe BS a little bit, or maybe take a coffee break that isn't as long when that, all right, I'm going to put in this work, I'm going to put in this effort, and there's a policy that I know that I'm going to receive a bonus at the end of the month.
Yeah. And I love that you're like, oh man, we'll take a coffee break. I'm like, it's so funny, right? And no hate against Jim, but this is where, again, like, I love that you're so interested in learning our industry, because for us, for the most part, it's more of like with employees, there's this cycle where employees are like, I'm poor, give me all the dogs, because they're commission based. So it's like, I'm going to work myself to death and rush through it. I know there's, if you're like me, who's ADD, it's like when there's a lot of pressure, I can work a lot faster, right? But then I get burned out. And so they're burned out, and then they're like, oh no, I can't groom that many dogs. Give me less dogs, give them less dogs. And then they're broke and they do this. So this is going to help us even out, so that we're going to prevent our groomers from burnout, as well as incentivize them. And I teach this through points. Oh, go ahead, Jim.
Sorry. And I was going to say too, it also can help promote some, harmony amongst the groomers also. If you have a couple of groomers that are kind of on that, hey, I want to get, I need to make some money, give me all the dogs. Well, if you got 2 or 3 that are in that cycle at the same time, you might be in a position where, maybe they're fighting for dogs, or maybe complaining, A got more dogs than me, or something like that. And likewise, if you have a groomer that's, I've got some money, I don't want to do as much right now, other groomers might think like, hey, all this work is being put off on me. But if you think about it, on kind of the bonus type structure, you're more happy and willing to kind of jump in when someone else needs help, when someone else, is maybe on vacation, or just for whatever reason needs to take a little bit less time on that.
Absolutely. And I think in the grooming industry, a great example is, and I know, maybe Jim doesn't know this, but like we see this all the time. If you have commission and you get stuck with that asshole dog that is just aggressive and a pain in the butt, you may or may not get paid more, right? And if you have the devil dog and the other person has like the really sweet, easygoing dog, and they're getting charged the same, right? Because a lot of owners do that. They're not willing to really implement that point system. And you guys know how much I really want that point system to go everywhere. It's not fair if you get 50% of the quote unquote good dog and I get 50% of the bad dog. But if I'm being paid hourly, right, what's going to happen is I should have the amount of time allocated to do that dog. So if that dog needs more time, care, attention, more patience, I've got to be more careful, then I'm going to be paid, right? That's important. And that's also where I really think, we can talk more later, guys, about the point system. I don't want to go too far off that, but it is really important because we want our hourly workers to function better as a team. And when you have commission and I have commission and I don't get a piece of your pie, that's not really great for teamwork, right? I really want your grooming staff to worry less about competition and function as a team. Like Jim said, if you have more dogs, but I want more dogs, and that's my dog, and why is she grooming my dog? Well, it's not your dog, it's the business's dog, right? And with a commission pay model, many young groomers try to groom as many dogs as possible to make more money, right? But more than half the industry leaves within 5 years because they just burn themselves out. that's just not good for anyone. It's not good for you as an employer, right? If you, especially if you're training people from bather to groomer, take you 2 years to train somebody and they're gone 3 years after you train them, that's not a very good ROI. Okay.
No, and I'll note too, on the competition side of it, if you think about it, if you've got your groomers are getting paid on a commission, you are going to have those potential fights between whose dog is who, and did you take my dog, and did you schedule it that way? Because really, if you think about it, they're all operating their own little business in that case. That's competing with your other groomers that are there. They're fighting for those dogs, and you hope nobody does anything kind of sneaky, like, if someone calls to reschedule an appointment, they schedule it for, when they're available and they're having a groomer there. And it creates, a situation that you don't really have a harmonious workforce. And, that's going to lead to less productivity. You're going to see people, calling out sick and leaving early. In an environment that isn't conducive to productivity isn't going to be productive.
No, and I think that's totally true. And I'd actually really love for you to come back and talk more about that, because I do think, the structure that I suggest, that I learned outside of the grooming industry is so different. Like, I don't suggest that groomers right now, most groomers, and I know you know this with your dog, they come out and they talk to the owner and they check out the owner and all of that. And I just think that's so, they are basically running in their own business, and that's why they do want to be treated like a partner. And I'd love for us to talk about that in another session. I think that'd be wonderful on another show.
Yeah. And be happy to be here.
Yeah, we're really enjoying you're here with us. So some of you guys know some groomers have more talent and can groom more dogs per day without burning themselves out. However, it ends up happening and people take on way more dogs than they can handle and either fall behind in their grooming day or they push through it. And again, with commission, their coworkers eventually get sick of picking up their slack, right? If you're that kind of person, I used to have this happen all the time when I was a groomer. Someone would be like, I'm a 10 dog a day kind of person. And I was a 5 to 6 dog a day person, but maybe I took 7. And so I'm kind of hustling along, and they would be like, oh my God, can you finish blow drying this dog? Or, oh my God, can you finish this dog? And then it's like, okay, you've half done the dog. I've half done the dog. Who gets the money? And they're going to get the money for my work. And so I might do it the first or second time, but then I'm not going to do that. And that just creates all kinds of unfortunate tension, right? And, again, that commission encourages us to compete against each other and groom and groom and groom until our bodies break down. It's just not sustainable. It's not healthy. Again, paying those hourly rate eliminates this culture and lets your employees relax and work as a team. Okay. I also want to mention, and it's interesting because, the first time Jim heard the term baby groomer, I know some of you guys hate that term, but he was like, I'm so confused here. Right. So if you guys, a green groomer, a baby groomer, a newbie groomer, I like baby groomer, honestly, because I feel like when they first start grooming, you're like, oh, you poor thing. You're so cute. Just like watching a baby walk. With commission, right? What is the commission rate for a baby groomer? And what is the commission rate for a finished groomer? And by switching them to hourly, and I personally teach in my business to have set hourlies and have the hourlies posted everywhere so everyone knows what everyone's going to make based on their skill level and or their production level. So if I'm a baby groomer, if I want to get to a certain dollar amount, I know what skills and everything I have to create, right? And as a finished groomer, I can either be perfectly happy where I am and get bonuses. And now I do suggest that you give a loyalty bonus to your finished groomers, right? If they stay every year, give them a nice big check for staying, or give them a bonus and have a 1-year contract. Again, Jim and I could always talk more about things like that in the future. But commission, again, I used to hate when I worked at Petco that somebody who did a garbage job, who treated dogs like garbage, like literally would do one wash, no blow dry, stick them in a kennel dryer, shave them, 0 scissor work, got paid the same commission as I did. It just really wasn't fair.
No, that's exactly right. And if you think about it too, if you're on kind of the bonus type structure, it really incentivizes groomers to, focus on getting better, working more efficiently. Maybe they'll want to take some, training, additional training, maybe ask some more questions from your finished groomers on how to do this better, how to do this quicker. And they do that on their own.
Absolutely. And, I know I've explained, if you guys have seen my pricing and points class, if you haven't, guys, it's in my business workshop library. It's a great class. You can also buy it individually. So in this class, we talk a little bit about the point system, and we are creating a higher managed pay based on the point system. But remember, if you're a finished groomer and you're really good at grooming those aggressive dogs, you're going to get more points. So you're going to get your hourly rate, but you're going to get more points, which means that your business owner, or if you are the business owner, you can give that finished groomer who has a knack for doing either hand scissoring, hand stripping, if that's what you want to do, those aggressive dogs, you can give them extra points and pay them higher wages, even though they're not working more hours. Right. And it's ultimately their choice, because, there's so many ways of structuring that in a way that's really fair. And, whether you give those bonuses monthly or you give them quarterly, it's a great way to say thank you for all your hard work. And at the same time, as a groomer, pick your own adventure. How much do you want to work? Maybe this month you want to spend more time at home. Maybe next month you really do say, hey, boss, I really want to make some extra money. Right. And that's assuming that you're doing monthly bonuses. It might be quarterly. If your boss does it quarterly, or if you're an owner and you want to do it quarterly, you might say, okay, for, September, October, be October, November, December, those 3 months, you say to your boss, like, hey, I'm going to work balls to the wall. I'm going to go crazy. But, in January, February, March, I kind of want to take a break. I want to go on vacation. Right. And there's so many ways of structuring that works for everyone.
Flexibility for the owner and flexibility for the employee.
Right. But still have those consistent guaranteed rates. I always say 50% of nothing is nothing.
Exactly right.
And if you are going to be taking commission position, or if you're going to offer commission position, no matter what, you have to offer at least minimum wage, and you do have to track your hours. So for those of you guys that think you're going to make out on commission, if your idea of making out is making minimum wage or paying your employee minimum wage, I don't think that's fair. I don't think that's good for anybody.
No, and it's important too, when you're paying commission, even if someone is working on a commission basis, a lot of states will require you to pay them the equivalent of overtime. So really, essentially, they could be making even more than 50% if there's a week where maybe they worked more than 40 hours. It creates some legal predicaments as well that you really get to, for the most part, avoid when it's on an hourly basis.
Absolutely. And just to go back to these difficult dogs, guys, those dogs that are very difficult, right? Again, by having that hourly wage, we're allowing that groomer to take their time and to really blend that all out. I just can't tell you. And for bonuses, you can provide fun incentives, guys, right? At my shop, what we used to do is every month, we would have team bonuses and individual bonuses. If the team hit their numbers, if we hit our numbers by Friday, I bought everyone coffees for Saturday morning. And if we hit our bonus before lunchtime on Saturday, then I bought everyone lunch. And if we hit our monthly numbers, then people had two options. Either one, they could come out for a girls' night out, which, even when I had a guy, we'll say girls' night out. Or if they were very introverted and they didn't want to come with us, I would always give them a gift card to whatever restaurant they wanted, or coffee, whatever, in the amount of money I would have spent taking them out. And this, again, incentivize people that are extroverted, who want to have that community and that bonding, and people that are very introverted, who just want their own space, but still want to feel appreciated.
Exactly right. Incentivized and appreciated is a good way to grow a business.
Absolutely. And we can go into these whole thing about like love languages and how to do that. But I feel like we really need an entire course on all that. So I feel like, again, if we're talking about what's fair, it comes down to what is a livable wage that your employee needs to live on. And there's so many ways of going through this in the Price Increase Masterclass. We talk more about how to actually calculate all of that, because I wish it was like, here's a basic one. But if you are looking for a really quick way of doing that, go to Zillow.com, look up the location of your shop, look for a 2-bedroom, 1-bath apartment, and see how much money that rent is. If it's $2,000, most corporate landlords require 3 to 4 times that rent. So if you have a place that is $2,000, and I'm lazy, so I'm grabbing my calculator really quick, guys. Right? So if they need to make $2,000, which I know is $6,000, but let's do it for dramatic effect. That's $6,000.
Dum, dum, dum.
I know. And we're going to divide that by 4 weeks. And then we're going to divide that by 40 hours. That means that person, to afford that $2,000 a month apartment, needs to make $36.50 an hour based on 40 hours a week. And so that's a really, really fast way of doing that. What's fair for the groomer is to have a livable wage having one job, to be able to go in, work their heart out, but not be physically hurt and broken. And what I feel like is fair to the business owner is to be profitable and have workers that are passionate and happy with what they do.
That's going to make the owner a lot happier too.
I think it just makes everyone happy. I mean, isn't that the point? You know, I've owned businesses, and I will tell you the worst thing you can have is an employee who is so unhappy and there's nothing you can do. And sometimes it's just not a good fit. Sometimes, guys, they're just not the right fit for your business. That's okay. And sometimes you work at a place and you want to be happy, but you're just not. And that's okay too.
It happens.
All right, guys. Well, I want to thank you guys so much for joining me for this episode of Grow Wealthy Grooming. Be sure to visit me at savvygroomer.com to see all the current opportunities to work with me in growing your grooming business and all of the free resources I have for you to learn. You can also pop into my free community, Savvy Pet Professionals. Thank you so much, Jim, for coming here and being here with us. I really appreciate your time.
Of course. Love spending time with you, River. Love talking about the grooming industry, something I learn about every time we have one of these discussions. Bye-bye, everyone.
Bye, guys. Happy grooming.